Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Stuart Allen Swordlow.
You forget your name.
I forgot my name because you were annoying me. Please, ladies and gentlemen, forgive us. I'm having issues with our crew today and with my so-called partner, my so-called wife, Mr. Janet. I used to know a woman in Hong Kong who was getting divorced. My so-called husband, Mr. Wong. Anyway.
So what's your name again?
I don't remember. Emperor of the Universe. Let's leave it at that. It's the Emperor of the Universe.
It's your show.
Go do your thing so I can
and
get...
Janet Diane Morius Swordlow.
Yes, and this is the Expansions News Podcast for the second week of July 2020. I don't know if it's really the second week or almost the second and a half week. I don't know, but it's
Maybe it's
after
not
the
even
first
July.
week.
Maybe it's not even 2020.
I don't even
Maybe
care.
we're in a time warp.
Maybe you need to stop speaking so I can continue with my podcast.
I want them to say, Janet, quit interrupting him. We want to hear what he has to say.
So, you're annoying, and it reminds me of the person I'm going to speak about, George Soros.
Oh, I wish I had the money of George Soros.
Well, I wish you would too.
Then you wouldn't find me annoying.
Then I would love you very, very much.
Yes, I'm sure you would.
Mm-hmm. Well, George Soros has given actually $40 million so far to his Fund for Policy Reform, which is a nonprofit. That's hilarious. Nonprofit Open Society Foundations Network, which has actually $750 million in the bank, according to their own tax return. Why don't you have $750 million?
Because I'm not a
even
nonprofit.
10% of that or 1% of that.
I guess you have to be a nonprofit. Sounds to me like they're nonprofits making profit.
Well, exactly. And it allows Soros to keep his name on the top of the list of the biggest donors to political committees and gives tens of millions indirectly. So in other words, he funnels it through these fake organizations like Black Lives Matter and so on, which I know is politically incorrect to say that, but it's true.
It is politically incorrect to say
It's politically incorrect to say she or he or anything like that.
Or husband or wife.
Husband or wife or
That's
male,
true.
female. It's just ridiculous stupidity. And quite frankly, I'm not dealing with it. So, deal with that. Yes, I'm in a really bad mood today. A lot of issues going on. Right? Missy Fu?
My lips are sealed.
Missy Fu means you're Chinese. You're from China. Miss Fu.
Well, you said that
Wow.
I have
So-called Miss
Asian
Fu.
genetics.
You do? I have Asian.
Well, you said if I'm Hebrew, I mean that makes me part Asian.
Yeah, Western Asian. I'm from East Asia.
So we have both.
So the Democrats across the country are always against dark money. And politics, we say Trump is getting money from dark places and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, they're the ones who, speaking of
Well, that's
democrats.
They point the finger because then you look the other direction instead of at them.
So, and this article states that George Soros's spending highlights how dependent the Democrats are from billionaires like him and how they are hypocritical in their rhetoric. So, he's also pushed another $25 million to other liberal organizations. For example, the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer got $5 million for Priorities USA Action, and pro-Biden organizations got $2.5 million for their left-wing Win Justice, and many states who are controlled by Democrats like ours are getting money passed along by Soros. And a lot, of course, go to anti-Trump campaigns, including anti-Trump advertisements focused on criticizing the president's response to the coronavirus in states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, who are controlled by evil Democrats. Like, I'm going to close down your state
That
again.
wouldn't surprise me.
It's going to close her down. That's what ought to happen. He sent hundreds of thousands to guess who? House Speaker Nancy Pants Pelosi for what she has as a victory fund. The Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee and other Democratic committees, and including numerous state-based initiatives like year-round organizing in Arizona, Florida, Colorado, Georgia, Michigan, New Mexico, Nevada, and Virginia. And so the Democrats and the anarchists are being supported by foreign agents who want to destroy the United States. That's treason.
I want to know where Mr. Soros got all his money to start with.
That's a very good question. You know, here's the thing. He's born in Hungary just before the war to a Jewish family, but suddenly he was supporting the Nazis, and the Nazis supported him, and he helped the Nazis eliminate the Jews from Hungary. So what the heck is he? Maybe they were not Jewish.
But none of that, but he's 90 years old, so I mean, he can't be doing all this by himself at this point in time.
Well, there's a lot of 90-year-olds who could do. Look at Betty White. She's 98.
Yeah, but
And
she's
doing all
not
kinds of
running
stuff.
this, as far as we know.
Maybe you never see her and Soros in the same room. Interesting. So, and speaking of people like this, you know, Ilhan Omar from Somalia, her own Somalian people have said, why did you flee Somalia to come here and turn United States into Somalia?
Well, I've got
Why
information
did you do that?
on her as we move
You
on.
do? Good. I want to hear the information on Ilwind and that stupid Talib and the one
I've got
Presley
that too.
shaved her head. She's mentally ill. You look, she's a mentally ill person.
Well, they're demon controlled.
All of them are, and so is that AOC, who, that's not even her real name. And we found, I'll mention something at the end. Now, speaking of people who are evil and ill, Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, who was arrested last week, has a secret stockpile of sex tapes
Well, it's not a surprise.
from Jeffrey Epstein as an insurance policy to save herself from federal charges, according to her friend.
I'm sure the feds have the same
So the
thing.
thing is, do they really think that, oh, you give us the tapes, you can go outside and have fun? It's not going to
Well,
happen.
they already have the tapes. They
But I'm just
got
saying that
those.
she's not going to get off just by giving the tapes. Maybe she won't be executed, but she's not going to be given a free walk. That's for
already
sure.
have the tapes.
Now it says that they call her former socialite. How about current spy, who was arrested in New Hampshire last week, supposedly, and moved to Brooklyn, lockup. Well, just
Supposedly.
being in Brooklyn is being in prison.
But we
That's like the
don't know.
worst place you could be at anyway.
But it's a
So-
supposed thing.
Yeah, but of course, I don't believe she's there. She's someplace else, and they're not going to say where. And I read this morning that she has videos on 2 top U.S. politicians. Did you read that?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know who they are.
No, probably Clinton, because he is
Oh.
dressed in that.
Well, but he's not really a
dress.
politician anymore.
Well, I think most
You
people
know,
still consider
I
him a
hope
politician.
it's Shifty and Pelosi.
I'm sure there's so many.
I
of them.
hope it's those
They're just
two.
saying two. It's just a tip of the
Yeah.
iceberg.
Now, there's a TV host and journalist. Did you ever hear of him, Christopher Mason?
Maybe.
I never heard of him, but he's known Maxwell since the 1980s, and he was told that Epstein rigged his multiple homes with cameras and kept surveillance tapes on everyone and everything that went on in them.
They've said that ever since the Epstein thing started.
It's like being in the mall. And then she's going to use those recordings as a way to beat the rap. It's not going to beat it's not going to happen. If she dies, whether mysteriously or someone kills her, there's going to be a civil war.
I think she's a Mossad agent. That's what I think.
Not think. I know she is. Her
So
father was.
therefore, it's not gonna. None of that's gonna happen. She's gonna.
And that's
go-
really disgusting that the Israelis would do such horrible things, even as a Mossad, even as intelligence. That's disgusting.
But the
really.
thing is they have to entrap these people, and if they don't do it, somebody else will. I know it's disgusting, but unfortunately, it's.
But you want to know something? If that's what it was, it didn't work because everybody was against Israel anyway. So what did they gain? Nothing.
We haven't seen it yet.
You know, it's funny because I read a story many years ago from a Mossad agent who said that they framed an Arab leader, a very wealthy one, with sex tapes and blah blah, and they called him and they said, if you don't do what we say, we're going to show this to your family. You know what he said? He said he wanted copies. He was so proud of himself. He wants to show all his friends. Like he can show those veiled his wives, like
right,
if
what
they
they
say
do.
something, he'll kill them.
Yeah.
That's funny. He wanted copies. Anyway, according to the friend, Ghislaine has always been as cunning as they come. She wasn't going to be with Epstein all those years and not have some insurance. It's the ex-friend said. No, she's never an ex-friend. And of course, like you mentioned, she and her father were in the Mossad, and I think some of her other brothers and sisters were as well, because they were sent all over the place. And she has copies of everything Epstein had. So the question then is, did he give them to her? Did she steal them? How did she get them?
It doesn't really matter because the people who investigated and pulled those tapes anyway. So I mean, he didn't do that by himself. So
And right.
This is exactly what I talked about when we've talked about other high-profile people. There are a lot of people behind the scenes that know things. That's all they have. That's all they have to do is call in the low-level people.
And it said they could implicate some twisted movers and shakers. They're twisted. And then former friend said, if Ghislaine goes down, she's gonna take the whole damn lot of them with her. And that's why I think we're seeing a lot of mysteriously people disappear, like on a lake or from a bridge. It's suicides from a doorknob, all kinds of weird things going on. So we should hear about most of that before the November elections. And if we don't, then Trump is really stupid.
That's what all this is about.
Speaking of stupid, Joe Biden, who has claimed that he couldn't support defending the police, was doing an interview, and when Biden was asked if he would agree with taking funds from the police and redirecting them to other government agencies, Biden responded, yes. He said, yes, absolutely. You're kind of cute.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, good thing I don't have his little hand puppets.
It's a good thing they would get cut off.
Well, you may like it, I don't know. And then they said we should not only be taking, now this is funny, we should not only be taking money from the police and sending it to other agencies like social work and mental health, well, he needs that help, but that we should also be stripping law enforcement of their obligations, like defending people and keeping peace and security. Is that the obligation you should strip them from, idiots? Now, here's what they want to do instead. This is absolutely hilarious if it wasn't scary. For example, instead of sending 2 police officers with deadly weapons to the Wendy's drive-thru in Atlanta, we could have sent a wellness counselor and a tow truck to move his car. And then Rayshard Brooks would still be alive today, and his 3 daughters would still have their daddy.
Maybe the police officers would have been dead.
But here's the truth. The officers did nothing wrong. It was Rayshard Brooks who attacked the officers. It was Rayshard Brooks who stole a taser and tried to get the officer. It was Rayshard Brooks who fired at the cops and had to shoot him in self-defense to protect themselves and their weapons.
Not only that, but I think he
what would the counselors do? You know, would you put that weapon down? It's not very nice.
I think that he was also drunk on top of it.
He was on drugs. I'm telling you, this whole thing is so bizarre that if Biden wins, you might as well all commit suicide because you'd be safer.
Did you see the video when he said, I'm going to beat Joe Biden?
Biden said that?
Yeah. There's a video online, and he played it over and over, and the interviewer asked the question, he says...
Was it real?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And he said, I'm going to beat Joe Biden. That's what he said.
That is hilarious. I mean, seriously,
yeah.
this is who you want to vote for? Really? Speaking of voting, an Atlanta family said it received a voter registration form this week for their cat, Cody Timms, who died 12 years ago. How did this happen?
Well, like you said, you can't make it up.
So they said, I'm not sure they're trying to register dogs, mice, and snakes.
Maybe.
We should get for our cats and dogs too.
Might give us some extra votes here now.
Seriously. I mentioned we got voter registration forms from Michigan and we're not registered here. So that's really had that happen. Not too much fraud there. The Georgia Secretary of State's office told the station that they did not send out the form and that third-party groups behind such applications often use mailing lists to obtain names and addresses of people, and in this case, a cat. So my question is, why would Georgia's Secretary of State's office allow a third-party group to send out government voter registration or voter ballots?
Well, I want to know what mailing list the cat's name is on.
This should only come from a government office and only from a registered voter. I am sure the cat, may he rest in peace 12 years ago, did not register to vote when he was alive. I'm positive.
Maybe he was a very smart cat.
He was the cat's meow, I'll tell you that much. Maybe he was a cat burglar. It's possible. But the point is, he was a cat and he's dead. Two things that shouldn't have happened.
And he got a piece of
and he
mail.
got
Three things.
a ballot to vote.
Three things.
Hello? So when they say there's voter fraud possible, yeah, a little bit. Maybe we should give it to the mosquitoes outside too. So anyway, I told you I'm on a rant today. I just did not have a very good day today.
I'm sorry.
Are you really? Because I think you were a big part of that.
Never.
Yeah. Did you try to kill me?
Nope.
Remember you tried to kill me?
I did not.
I forgot what you did though. You did something.
Do anything.
First you tried to scare me. So I had a heart attack and die. Oh, and then you locked me out of the house. That's right. I went to turn the pool filter off and you locked me out of the house.
I locked that cat in.
Yeah, anyway. The Hispanic population in America has reached a record of 61 million Hispanic people, making them the largest minority in the nation. That means the United States is the second largest Spanish-speaking country on earth. First Mexico, then US. Spain is like down there. So the origin of Hispanic people, it's not even in the top 5. And they also make up the nation's second largest racial group behind whites. Oh, I'm not allowed to say white. I'm sorry, I was being white privileged at the time.
Maybe that was
Yeah.
a white supremacist statement.
Yeah, that was because of you, even though you're black and Cherokee and Lord knows what else the hell is in there. You're like some kind of mixed salad. I don't know what it is. So Hispanics could be the key to the 2020 election, obviously. And so that's why Trump is shutting the door to the illegal immigrants and trying to expand employment for legal immigrants. And before the coronavirus, I want to call it Morona. The Morona virus crisis whacked the economy. Hispanic employment was up 1.5 million jobs, and their unemployment was down. Trump-Pence campaign targeted the largest Hispanic news network in the U.S., Univision. I used to watch Univision. They have all those novellas from Mexico and so on, with a charge that is biased against the president. So yeah, because they're owned by the Democrats. Now, here's the interesting thing. The CEO of Goya Foods, you know Goya Foods.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to.
The
I forgot.
CEO of Goya Foods, the largest Hispanic food company in the United States, supports President Trump. He backed him. So you know what happened? AOC and her cronies told everyone to boycott Goya products.
I think you should all go out and buy Goya products.
So here's the thing. If you say publicly that you support the Republicans, you support Trump, you are condemned for it until you change your mind. So in other words, no freedom of speech, no freedom of voting. You must vote to what the Democrats say or you are attacked. What the hell is that about? That's communism, that's anarchy, that's dictatorship, that's Biden and Hillary and Obama and everything that they did. So you're removing freedom of choice and attack people who don't accept your anarchy or belief
And the
system.
thing is, so again, I will tell you, go buy Goya Foods and make their stocks rise.
I know, you should buy, we should just buy everything on the shelf from Goya.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And you are a Goya anyway. Inside joke, she's a Goya. Anyway, that means you're full of beans. You're my favorite taco. Soft shell. Soft shell. Anyway.
I'm gonna have to slap your hands.
Ooh, you know that I like when you slap
I
me.
know. So I was gonna do it
And
later.
it doesn't matter where you slap me.
Across your face.
You know that I love that. Stop saying it on camera. Anyway, FBI Director Christopher Wray said he warned Americans that the Chinese government's theft of American information is taking place on so large a scale that the incidents make up a little more than half of his bureau's counterintelligence cases. Of the nearly 5,000 active FBI counterintelligence cases currently underway across the country, half are related to China. And at this very moment, China is working to compromise American healthcare organizations, pharmaceutical companies, and academic institutions conducting essential COVID-19 research. And he says that most Americans have already been affected. If you're an adult American, it is more likely than not China has stolen your personal data. As an example, he noted in 2014, Chinese hackers stole more than 21 million records from the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. How did they do that?
2014?
Yeah, 21 million. They just plug in, took it out. How did they let that happen?
Who was president then?
Oh, who was president then? Good point, Taco Bell. Yes. Very interesting. So, Ray said, the Chinese Communist Party uses a diverse range of sophisticated techniques, everything from cyber intrusions to corrupting trusted insiders, and even outright physical theft. To do this, he claimed, they use a wide range of actors, including not just Chinese intelligence services, but state-owned enterprises, ostensibly private companies, certain kinds of graduate students and researchers, which is why Trump is throwing them out, and a whole variety of other actors working on their behalf. The director said that in some cases, China uses social media platforms used by Americans to identify people with access to our government's sensitive information and then target those people to try to steal it. In one instance, he recalled, a Chinese operative posed as a headhunter, offering money to an American citizen in exchange for consulting services that related to sensitive data, or you say data. In that particular case, the American reported the suspicious behavior to the FBI. And the Trump administration is considering restricting the United States users' access to the Chinese social media application TikTok, which I think is ultimate stupidity, TikTok, over it concerns it's potentially being used by the Beijing government as a means to surveil and propagandize people. Yes. And that Americans should be cautious in using video applications. Yes, and not only that, Zoom, which we've all been using in the last few months, Chinese creation. 5G, Chinese creation. Mr. Zuckerberg at Facebook is married to a Chinese woman who's very strange and with a very shady background. So China, no, this is me talking, China needs to be quarantined from the rest of the world and brought up of charges by the World Court. And the government there needs to change. That's what I say. No Chinese takeout. They go narrow. And stay there. You stay there. Anyway, I know I'm not politically correct, and I don't care if I insult China. Look what they did to the world. They should be executed for that.
But there's a lot of good Chinese people.
Yeah, it's not the people, it's the Communist Chinese Party. It's not just the government, it's the Chinese Communist Party, which goes beyond the government. It's their corporations, it's their military, there's a lot of things going on there. Remember, 1.4 billion people. That's a lot of people.
If I had $1 for every one of those people,
I would even take 50 cents. 50 cents, I take 50 cents. Okay? Now, what have I always said about the virus? I said no one has died from the coronavirus. Well, guess what? Now it's corroborated. This is a statement. No one has died from the coronavirus, according to Dr. Stoyan Alexov, a veteran and highly renowned Bulgarian doctor. Dr. Alexov has been a physician for 30 years, is the president of the Bulgarian Pathology Association, is a member of the ESPS's, I don't know what that means, advisory board, and is head of the histopathology department at Oncology Hospital in the Bulgarian capital of Sofia. Dr. Alexov reveals that European pathologists have not identified any antibodies that are specific for SARS-CoV-2, which is what we have, and furthermore states that he thinks it's impossible to create a vaccine against the SARS-CoV-2 virus that is causing, because it doesn't exist. The lack of proven COVID antibodies is further evidence that the virus does not really exist. Hello, everything I've told you now. As I discussed before, now he says the main conclusion was that the autopsies that were conducted in Germany, Italy, Spain, France, Sweden do not conclude that the virus is deadly. And he goes on to he alludes to the pressure being put on pathologists and doctors worldwide to water down and ignore the usual medical procedures and standards to accommodate the scam. And there was a video that I sent to you the other day where the governor of Illinois, who's a communist demon crap, and it's like the mayor of Chicago, and his spokesperson said, well, if someone dies of pneumonia and they suspect COVID, then they put COVID. So if they think you have COVID virus and you drive off a cliff and die, instead of saying you died in a car crash, you died of the virus.
They all admit that.
So they actually admitted that on camera. So
but they all
this is all fake though. When you see, a spike in Arizona, a spike in Florida, he's gonna die before tomorrow. It's full of crap. It's to keep you home until November 3rd. That's the whole point of it. Don't believe it, don't do it. The doctor goes on. At the moment, it's a total resistance of the pathologists in Europe, in China, as well as in Australia and Canada, that the pathologists have been pushed and pressured. If the patient has a coronavirus, the reason for death is to be written that it's nothing else but the coronavirus. And that's quite stressful for us and for me in particular, because we have protocols and procedures which we need to use, and they're not allowed to use them. Dr. Alexov said, in this case, now there is the WHO, World Health Organization, that doesn't want us to do autopsies. I'm not clear why the WHO doesn't want us to do autopsies when we need to prove what is the strength of the virus. I don't know why the WHO doesn't really want us to do autopsies. I assume they have the information that the virus is not deadly. And we are required to follow the WHO. Most countries, except thank God the US is getting out of there. Dr. Alexov points out how when he questioned his professional colleagues, they confirmed that no one has found any COVID antibodies in the bodies of the deceased during autopsy examination. And for questions that were answered, no, there is no such antibody that we can prove coronavirus is present in a biopsy or in autopsy tissue. In Bulgaria, we've done autopsies on people whose deaths were attributed to COVID-19. And what all the pathologists said is that there's no one who has died from the corona. I will repeat, no one has died from the coronavirus. And he says, and I will repeat, no one has died from the coronavirus. He said this throughout this statement.
That's 3 times, so it must be true.
Yes, and he says, and again, I won't talk specifically about a pandemic because I believe we don't have the facts necessary to call it a pandemic. I think it's not reasonable that the World Health Organization is still saying pandemic. He said it's an epidemic. I haven't seen such an advertisement for a virus before. He said the WHO is creating worldwide chaos with no real facts behind what they're saying. I'm certain it's not possible to create a vaccine against COVID. I'm not sure what exactly Bill Gates is doing with his laboratories. Is it really a vaccine he's producing or something else? And this is a great statement. I do believe the WHO is the best criminal medical organization.
That's a good one.
There is no pandemic and no epidemic. Dr. Alexov states emphatically at several points in the interview that there is no pandemic and no epidemic. He says yearly about 1.5 million people die worldwide from lung cancer due to smoking. If we compare that to the coronavirus, it would be like a pandemic and everybody would be told to stop smoking. Let's say a pandemic of smoking. So I will say that this epidemic isn't so much an epidemic of the virus, but it's an epidemic of giving people a lot of fear and stress.
I agree.
God bless this guy. This completely corroborates what I've been saying for the last 4 months. What's more than that, it's a total scam-demic. And the WHO and all the people in there should be dismantled and brought up of charges against humanity. Now, speaking of the WHO, guess what they said after all of this? In a sudden and unexpected about-face, the World Health Organization has announced that the evidence is scant to suggest that infected people without symptoms are capable of transmitting, and they said, Wuhan coronavirus. They said Wuhan. Which, by the way, if you watched my free webinar with Dr. Charles, a smock, it's been proven that the bubonic plague also came from Wuhan. So history repeats itself. Dr. Maria von Kerkhoff, the WHO's technical lead for COVID-19, recently explained that based on the data the organization has been collecting over the past several months, it still seems to be rare that an asymptomatic person actually transmits onto a secondary individual. So why do we have to wear masks? Which completely upends everything the government and media has been saying about how healthy people need to wear a mask, social distance, and remain isolated. They don't. The WHO is taking a 360-degree turn. And this is big news that asymptomatic people out there are not contagious. Take those freaking masks off. Take their gloves off. And here's something else that I saw today from Singapore. The hand sanitizer, if it has alcohol, actually it came from India. When it has alcohol in it and you apply that to a child, that child could get alcohol poisoning. Okay, number one. Two, if you use the non-alcohol hand sanitizer, it contains a toxic chemical used in pesticides that goes right through your skin, to your liver, to your brain, to your kidneys, to your thyroid, and will eventually kill you. So if you want to be sanitized, use soap and water. No hand sanitizer. Refuse that. And people who work in restaurants, or if you're cooking and use the hand sanitizer, and then you touch the food, guess what? That poison's going on the food that people are going to eat.
Well, they also show you if you're too close to the flame, it can make your hands
And and in India recently, a car exploded. They had hand sanitizer because the fuse came out and something sparked somewhere. Car blew up.
in the heat.
Very dangerous. Well, it's funny how the WHO changes their direction when the U.S. pulls its funding. Next week, which will be the week of July 13th, the CDC is supposed to be changing its position about things and even about school openings. President Trump has stated that it's time to end the insanity. President Trump, it was time a long time ago to end it.
That's right.
I hope you're going to do it now.
Me too.
I have more to say, but I'll let you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I've got. So, we keep talking about when you go to sleep at night, you don't know what's
Who
gonna,
goes to sleep at night?
you don't know what's going to be on the news the next day. So, like last night, I think it started, and of course this is viral all over the internet about the company called Wayfair,
Oh, yes.
human sex trafficking. And it was interesting because apparently it started on the Reddit forum. And a Reddit forum user speculated that expensive cabinets with human-style product names were actually a front for human trafficking.
Yes, I saw that.
And I looked at the screenshots that they showed, and these were 5-figure, I think it was
Yeah, like $10,000.
No, 12,000 to 15,000 for these cabinets. And interestingly enough, these 4 storage cabinets, they had the names of Naraya, Maritza,
Right.
Samaya, and Olivia, and their prices were from 13,000 to 15,000.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently there's a child porn site, I guess, called Yandex, which I never heard of, so gratefully.
That's good.
That's a good thing. You take these SKUs of these products and you put it into this porn site for children, and these girls pop up with those same names.
Well, those are names of people who had vanished.
Yes. And then what was interesting to me is that apparently they're claiming that Amazon is also part of that, and they showed an Amazon blanket that was listed for almost $10,000.
And throw pillows, no?
Well, I'm just talking about the blanket because that's the information I have here.
Mhm.
Anyway, so the blanket was listed for almost $10,000, and it had 1 review. And the guy said that he bought 1, but it was already sold out because he wanted to buy 2. And he said it was such a steal and it was so furry.
Isn't it interesting that Michael Jackson called one of his kids blanket?
Ah, yeah, that is interesting. That's very interesting. So anyway, now also they're posting on social media, and I didn't have a chance to look it up, but they claim that George Soros is a major shareholder of Wayfair.
He is.
So it was also interesting to me, and I was telling you about this, and I actually wrote about this in one of my blogs, is I got a catalog in the mail a few years ago. It was just a normal old looking catalog that was selling bedding. And in that particular catalog, as I was flipping through it, I saw a pillow that was listed for $10,000. And I saw a comforter that was listed for $25,000. So I remarked, and like I said, I've written about this on my blogs, who would buy this from this catalog? Because if I had that much money, I wouldn't be buying that from this catalog. So now it's dawning on me, well, this must be a way that they canvass the area, and those people in the know, if they get one of these standard catalogs and they look for those kind of prices, they probably know.
But you know, recently I've been looking for barbecues.
Yeah.
And I've been looking, and I also noticed that the same kind of barbecue on the same page, you could go anywhere from, let's say, $800 to like $15,000, $20,000, and it'll be like the same thing. And I thought,
who would
why
pay
would that
that?
be the same like that?
Right. And then
Now I know why.
But also because not too long ago, within the last couple of years, I was helping somebody shop for furniture that was moving. And when I went on those furniture websites, and they were not, you know, upscale names, let's say some, and I don't want to mention the brand names because I don't know, but they were not upscale names, let me put it that way. They're like average, where your average person would buy things from. They had things like couches for $15,000, $20,000. I'm thinking, who would buy that? Because honestly, if you have that much money to spend on a couch, I think you go to a personal designer.
Well, they have their own little websites with.
Yeah, that's what I said. It
those kind
wouldn't
of
be
things.
on these average things. So anyway, I think it's very interesting what's happening, and it'll be interesting to see where this goes. So, and I also want to remark, you know, that we have, and I will talk more about Black Lives Matter. However, if people will put their money and resources into our children and find it, well, if they put children's lives mattered, then a lot of this stuff would go down, because right now in the U.S. every year we have 800,000 missing
That's amazing.
children.
That's like
just
incredible.
in the U.S. And now this,
That's like the population of Rhode Island there.
and not only that, but there are women who are kept as breeders, and there's babies who are sold into sex trafficking who are never listed as missing, never reported.
Because it's never registered as a
Right,
person.
as a birth or a person or any of it. And then they raise some of them for breeders. So that John of God down in Brazil was doing that.
I knew him. I
All
saw him.
kinds of things are going on for children.
I
So
thought he was weird when I saw him driving around this little town in Brazil in an American sports car drinking
we know he's a
alcohol
good
and
friend of
smoking.
Oprah Winfrey's. He
Oh, was that?
Yes,
Well, he's in
that's-
jail now.
Yeah, well, she may be too soon.
Well, I think Jimmy's home to confinement.
And did you know that pedophiles now are trying to rebrand themselves as something called minor attractive person, or MAP,
What?
MAP, MAP, minor attracted person, to escape the stigma which is attached to the word pedophile. So they're trying to tag on to the LGBTQ community and use slogans such as MAP Pride and MAP Positivity.
Oh, please don't tell me they're allowed to do that.
Well, the LGBTQ community is very disturbed about that because they don't want it tagged onto there. They said, one of their spokespeople said, we utterly rebuke their delusional and evil claims. But what was interesting this got another interesting point around all of this. But so apparently back in the 70s and 80s, there was something called the Pedophile Information Exchange, or PIE. And apparently they also tried to piggyback on the gay liberation movement to push pro-child abuse policies, and they wanted to lower the age of consent to just 4 years old.
What?
Yeah. Now,
Oh,
apparently,
are you kidding?
no. Now I'm going to tell you what I thought about. Okay, so their acronym spells PIE. Do you remember the Pizza Gate? And pizzas are called pies. So to me, this is a continuation when they're calling it Pizzagate, pizza, the pie. It's a continuation of what happened. It got closed down back in '84. However, they still have the chairman, who's 75 years old, believe it or not, Tom O'Carroll in Britain. He's still arguing that a sexual relationship between an adult and a child is as natural as a mother's relationship with her baby.
No, it isn't.
And apparently, that there have been a lot of calls on social media to pull down on YouTube such interviews
Yeah, how
as
come
this.
these people are on and we get
Right.
deleted?
So apparently this particular source contacted YouTube, and YouTube did take some of this stuff down.
Some of it.
Some of it. Now, I will also tell you, remember now there's also this movement called Defund the Police. Well, I want you to pay attention to this next article. There's an FBI operation dubbed Operation Kickboxer that led investigators to identify and arrest distributors and manufacturers of child sexual abuse materials and to recover child victims of sexual abuse. Apparently, officials said on July 6th that the operation resulted in dozens of arrests across the country, as well as in other countries including Canada, the United Kingdom, Romania, and France. And they relied on more than 63 law enforcement agencies working on the FBI Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force in each of the Bureau's 56 field offices. The sweep included undercover operations and led to the opening of over 6 federal and international criminal investigations, and in all, approximately 65 suspected distributors, manufacturers, and hands-on offenders have been identified, arrested, and are in the process of being formally charged. So these are the people that they want defunded. When they say defund the police, defund the law enforcement, these are the people who are behind your, they've got your backs, and they're looking for your children, and they're putting their lives on the line. And that's why the Democrats want them defunded, because they don't want any more of these sex traffickers arrested.
That makes sense.
Yes, it does. Now, I'm sure you've heard by now, all of you, that Kanye West has said he's going to run for president.
Yay!
So, the first thing that happened was Elon Musk jumped on board and said he was going to support Kanye.
Right. He jumps on board
and
a lot of
Kanye
things.
said he's going to call it the birthday party. That's what he's got an independent called the birthday party.
I love that.
Because when he wins, it's going to be a birthday party for everybody.
Yes, especially for me.
And then, of course, his family said, he's having a mental episode.
Aren't
But
we
in the
all?
meantime, he'd already given several interviews, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So, and his wife, Kim Kardashian, 39 years old, was actually shown with a picture of what we call the spirit cooker, who this Marina Abramovich.
Oh, yes.
How do you say that last name?
Abramovich.
Abramovich, okay. And I gave an extensive podcast on that some weeks ago. Now they're claiming that Marina Abramovich is actually the brother of Ghislaine Maxwell. And Kim Kardashian...
She's a he.
Yes, and Kim Kardashian was shown with her picture, Kanye's wife, with this, we're not sure now, man-woman.
He, she.
And anyway, so keeping that in mind, Kanye slammed Planned Parenthood as an organization run by white supremacists to do the devil's work. That I happen to agree with.
That I agree with.
And they have been placed inside cities by white supremacists. Now, interestingly enough, his wife Kim has lent her support to Planned Parenthood, as has most of the
She's
Kardashians.
not all there,
And then Kanye also said that vaccines are mark of the beast.
That's true.
And his wife also famously had all their children vaccinated on one of their television shows because she supports vaccines.
So what are they doing together?
And then Kanye said that he wants to clean up chemicals because it's in our deodorant, in our toothpaste, and these are chemicals that affect our ability to be of service to God.
He's right.
After
I have
all
to
of
say he's
that,
right.
then his wife tweeted that she supports his run for presidency. Although they're still saying he's having a mental episode. And
We're all having a mental episode.
And Elon Musk retracted his support of Kanye's campaign.
There you go.
Saying we may have more differences of opinion than I had anticipated.
Yeah.
And you'll also be interested to know, on July 6th, Kanye reportedly filed papers to trademark his new slogan, which is West Day Ever. West Day Ever. Instead of best day ever,
Oh, okay.
West Day.
Uh-huh.
Okay? So that I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Elon Omar called for the dismantling of the U.S. economy and the political system. As long as our economy and political systems prioritize profit without considering who is profiting, who is being shut out, we will perpetuate this inequality. And remember what I just, before you speak, Kanye West is black, and Kanye West is a billionaire. So don't say that he's not profiting and it's inequality.
And I want to know how Ilhan Omar gave $900,000 to her new white husband for nothing.
Right.
Illegally.
Yes.
Maybe she should explain that about her husband, brother. And,
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of stuff she needs to explain.
Yeah, and they also have pictures. I'm not sure if it's her or if it's the Talib one, and supposedly holding guns and all kinds of things, being trained back in their countries.
Probably her.
Anyway, so as a result of this, Senator Marsha Blackburn, Republican Tennessee, urged Representative Omar to resign.
Yeah.
Because she said Ilhan Omar took an oath to defend and protect the Constitution, not shred it.
Right.
Omar and her Marxist comrades are a threat to our democracy,
Absolutely.
and Omar should resign.
And she should be deported.
Now, believe it or not, President Trump also talked about this Ilhan Omar and said that she would be very much involved in a Biden government. And he goes on to say they will put this hate-filled, America-bashing socialist front and center in deciding the fate of your family and deciding the fate of your country. I don't think so. She would like to make the government of our country just like the country where she came from, Somalia.
Where she fled from because her father was a murderer, terrorist, and the people wanted to kill him and his family.
But you know what? I don't think they fled for that reason. I think that's a story. I think they planted her here for this reason.
Well, that could be too.
And Trump says no government, no safety, no police, no nothing, just anarchy of Somalia.
Yeah, that's what they want.
And then,
until they get that, and then they'll start taking over and become a dictatorship.
And
like it is.
They'll fight amongst themselves and kill each
Like
other. That's
Cuba.
what they do. Yes. And apparently, there's something which you may have heard called the Breathe Act, which was filed by Representative Rashida Tlaib, unfortunately Democratic Michigan, along with the support
Who let her in?
from squad member Representative Ayanna Pressley, Democrat, Massachusetts.
She's a mental case.
And who knows why, musician John Legend. Okay?
He's mentally ill
It's called
too.
the Breathe Act. So apparently there's a
He's
senator.
not a legend.
Senator John Kennedy, a Republican from Louisiana, dismissed the squad's recent anti-police legislation, calling them Marxist and saying the bill, again, belongs in a shredder.
Yeah, and so do they belong. All of them belong in a shredder.
It was written, he said, by the Electoral Justice Project for the movement for, guess what, Black Lives Matter.
AKA Soros.
And they seek to abandon police, prisons, any form of punishment for lawbreakers, defund the police.
How could that make any sense whatsoever?
Defund the Defense Department, provide reparations, close all federal prisons, remove police from schools, and open all American borders.
So in other words, create hell on earth.
No, according to Representative Kennedy from Louisiana, he said the bill is actually a criminal's dream come true.
Well, duh.
Yeah. He said that the squad have the right to say what they want, but nobody in the Senate is taking it seriously.
I hope not.
And in Toronto, they're doing something good. Do you know what it is?
Something good in Canada?
Yeah.
That's very odd.
Apparently, the protesters took to Toronto streets to oppose mandatory masks because the Ontario government mandated that they all be worn indoors as of last week. The protest was organized by the linecanada.com, and they flooded the subway chanting hugs over masks and back to normal. So that was that was pretty good for them.
Good for you, Canada.
And let's see, we have, I'm going to say expert loosely, Eric Toner, who's a senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, claims Americans will be wearing masks for several years.
Really? I don't think so.
Yeah, until we have a flu vaccine. And what I keep reminding everybody is we have a flu vaccine and we still have 50 to 60,000
It's called vitamin C.
50 to 60,000 deaths every year in the U.S.
And more.
Actually, you know, it was interesting you bring that up because I saw one of the memes that was talking about the biggest disease we have is hunger. And when there's a very easy cure for that, which is food. And again, if they took all this money that they're putting into vaccines and they fed people and they
gave them proper supplements,
and they clothed them and they
You
gave
wouldn't
them
have
sanitation. But interesting, there's another one that talks about all the homeless people, and I brought this up before, who are not taking baths and not social distancing and all that, and they don't have coronavirus.
That's true. They're probably healthier than everybody
That's
else.
right. And they're not wearing a mask, they're not running around,
And they
saying, I'm
sleep on the
afraid,
street.
and they're not, right, they're not stressed, they're doing their thing. So keep this in mind, it's just ridiculous. And of course, the White House had to defend Trump's claim that 99% of COVID-19 cases are harmless.
How about 100%?
They had their press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany.
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 And you're part Irish.
I know, I'm part of everything. She says the president was noting the fact that the vast majority of Americans who contract coronavirus will come out on the other side. And of course, he takes this very seriously.
It's the truth.
And even now, the U.S. Surgeon General, Jerome Adams, said he is against a nationwide mask mandate because
Thank God.
it would be counterproductive and cause rebellion.
So then why don't they do something about it?
Well, and apparently now Governor Greg Abbott of
Texas.
Texas, I believe he's a Republican. However, his county Republican Party voted to censure him because they accused him of overstepping his authority in responding to the coronavirus pandemic. They called for a special session by Senator Charles Perry, Republican Lubbock, so that lawmakers could have a say in how Texas proceeds amid their soaring caseloads.
That's Lubbock is West Texas. They don't mess with nobody.
That's right. Anyway, they're accusing Abbott of violating 5 party principles related to his exercise of executive power during the pandemic. While the resolution asks that the delegates to the state convention later this month consider and affirm the county's action, consideration is not guaranteed, and right now it really doesn't have any bite against the governor. They're just hoping to send a message about what they consider the governor's overreach. Now this one, remember, we've been talking about Africa and what Africa is doing to fight off all what the world is trying to impose on them. And actually, this happened the end of June, and it just came across my desk. But the Burundian president dies suddenly after expelling WHO for the false pandemic.
That's interesting.
Yes, he was only 55 years old, and they claim that he died following cardiac arrest. But
From poison that was administered in his drink.
Yes, because apparently he had just been evaluated as being in good overall health. And then it says that local pundits, I don't know if you read my article, that local pundits suggested his death could have been the consequences of poisoning because less than a month ago, the Burundian government ordered the expulsion of experts from the World Hoax Organization.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Responsible for advising on the false pandemic COVID-19. The president and his Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that the WHO representatives was henceforth be considered persona non grata and not welcome on Burundian territory.
Good for them.
Now this was also interesting, which you'll find. The unexpected death of the president is reminiscent of the mysterious plane crash of Polish President Lech Kaczynski in 2009, in which he was killed shortly after he refused the vaccine made by the WHO against the H1N1 flu.
That's not the exact reason he was killed.
I know, but that's what they're claiming in this
But
article.
his brother, his twin brother, had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
And I did work for the Polish government
I
on
know.
that, which is why I've been kicked out of Poland.
Yeah, but this is why I'm telling you that I thought that you'd find this interesting because they're linking the two deaths for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And now, in case you want to have another reason to call yourself a racist, apparently if you go to a national park, you're a racist.
Why?
ABC News said this. ABC
What?
News said going to national parks is racist because they said millions of Americans escape home quarantine to the great outdoors this summer. They'll venture into parks, campgrounds, and forest lands that remain stubborn bastions of self-segregation. So the person who
How does
wrote
that make
this,
you a racist?
well, this is the person who wrote this is absolutely ridiculous. He says if it's racist to go to national parks, even though you're not keeping anybody else from going there,
Yeah, anybody can go.
and if you're a white person and it's your fault nobody else wants to go there, he says, how can that be racism?
It's not. It's a stupidity.
He said-
what the hell is going on in the United States?
He says there's nothing more racist than not being a racist.
You know what? They're all racist, and I'm not.
And now this is interesting, but so I'm bringing this one up because again, I think I can verify, but it's interesting, and it's been put out there by K.W. Miller, who's an unaffiliated candidate running in the Florida's 18th congressional district. He claims, is that she or she? He claims Beyonce is not even African American.
No.
He claims that she is part of Soros's deep state agenda. And he says, you all do know that Beyonce's song Formation was a secret coded message to the globalists. And he said the song proved that she was a Satanist.
Really?
And then he goes on to say she's not even American, she's Italian.
Get out of
And her
here.
real name is Anne Marie Lastrassi.
Do you believe that?
I don't know. I put that out there for you because I looked it
Well,
up.
that's what I was going to say about a few things after that.
Yeah,
too.
but I was going to I actually looked it up, and they said where she was born, and here in the U.S., and her parents. I think
Well, that
maybe
could be made up, like Obama's was made up.
Exactly. So that's why I said it. That's why I'm telling you, keep your ears and eyes open because this stuff just gets weirder every day. Now, Black Lives Matter news. I saw the
You should paint that in front of our house, and our neighbors will
yeah,
love
I'm
that.
sure they would love that. So somebody said Black Lives Matter, BLM, Baal, Lucifer, and Moloch. Possible.
It's true.
Mayor de Blasio canceled all major New York City events, including the Feast of San Gennaro for this summer,
Except.
Black Lives Matter's protests.
Yeah. Let's expose him again. His name is
I
not
got that here.
Bill de Blasio.
No, it's Warren Wilhelm Jr. He
Right.
worked for the Quixote Center, which supported Marxist-Leninist ruling
He
governments
was
of
a
Nicaragua,
Sandinista.
Sandinista National Liberation Front.
I have a lot of pictures of him as a Sandinista and a communist, and that's who the mayor of New York City is. People in New York City who voted for him. Get him the F out of
But
there.
they're all here. When people have fake names, that's why we use
He's
our real
fake,
names.
fake. Married to a lesbian black woman who suddenly decided this fake white guy with the fake name is her lover of life after she's a black lesbian. Really?
But not only that, but there's also stories, and there's so much, I didn't put it in here, but there's also stories about her getting illegal funds from certain things.
I'm sure she did. They're all a
They
setup.
all
It's a
do.
big
They
fake
all
setup. And New Yorkers fell for it.
Yeah. Now, this was interesting, this next story, because it didn't, again, make much news, and to me it should have been on the news. And this is that Georgia declared a state of emergency and deployed 1,000 National Guard troops. And that's nowhere. I heard about it, that night. And I went in the next day and I looked all over, and if you search for it, you can find it, but it's not in the news. So Georgia, apparently because of the bloody 4th of July weekend they had in Atlanta, Governor Brian Kemp...
Which they should have had special counselors
Yeah, maybe.
in tow trucks
Yeah.
instead of police.
Governor Brian Kemp made the announcement after 30 people were shot and 5 killed in Atlanta, including that 8-year-old girl, I had to say her name, Sequoia Turner, which has been a big thing about that. But a lot of kids have been being killed over this.
It's a sacrifice.
Black on black killings.
And they're black children being killed by black people.
Killings all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So the governor said peaceful protests were hijacked by criminals with a dangerous, destructive agenda. And that's the thing, is they get the innocent people who honestly believe they're doing something good and they turn it into something bad. And that's an old line that they've done forever. So President Trump said that the federal government is ready to intervene in New York, but he has to be asked. That I don't understand this.
He can declare an emergency and
sooner or
say there's
later.
an insurgency, and that he has every right to go in there.
But I don't know why, but we'll find out, I guess. And in Seattle, unfortunately, now to me it's a place of shame.
Yeah.
The Seattle Office of Civil Rights managing the training sessions on race, are managing training sessions on racial bias. They have classes which are part of the city's Race and Social Justice Initiative, which they actually established 10 years ago. But the reason these training sessions have drawn scrutiny is because now the participants are separated into groups based on their race.
And that's a racist, anti-racist.
Yes.
Brilliant. Shame-addle.
That's a good word. Training called Internalized Racial Superiority. So we'll examine our complicity in the system of white supremacy and begin to cultivate practices that enable us to interrupt racism in ways that are accountable to Black, Indigenous, and people of color, which now they're calling BIPOC.
BIPOC.
Black, Indigenous, people of color.
I'm not people of color.
Again, white people are not clear they have color.
I have a color.
Everybody has a color. So apparently the city then offered similar training for city employees who identify as a person of color. So I guess if you're
I
white,
would
you
go.
could've gone to
I'd
that.
sign up. I'll have a color.
So the training, and they divided into 2 groups, I guess white and then the BIPOCs over here.
Well, that's racist.
Yes, it is. The training for the group was about how American conditioning, socialization, and history leads people of color to internalize radicalized beliefs, ideas, and behaviors about themselves, undergirding the power of white supremacy. All this is Seattle, city of Seattle teaching their people.
And this is why the volcanoes are going to blow up and destroy Seattle very soon.
Apparently, Chris Rufo, who is a documentary maker, filed a public disclosure request to obtain the diversity sessions course materials, and said what really disturbed me was that both that they are administrating these training in a race segregated manner and the content. It worries me if segregation is to become the new norm is led by the city of Seattle. It's very sad.
Seattle, you are going to be buried under ash and lava.
Okay, well now you have to figure out what might happen to Michigan, because guess what Governor Whitner did? She mandated implicit bias training for all Michigan health professionals. Now, implicit bias deals with race, weight, gender, and even how attractive people are. And this is serious.
I'm offended because I am attractive.
But then it goes on to say Black people make up 30% of all coronavirus cases and 40% of COVID-19 related deaths. Then she believes the reason is because there's, in the healthcare industry, when they have the intake, that they are biased against Black people.
No, how about is that because they just put that on the death certificate for everybody? How about that one?
The task force, the governor's task force, we don't know who's on there,
Yeah, nobody.
said people of color suffer in medical settings from the unconscious bias by medical professionals. Well, I'm going to tell you medical professionals come in all colors. And I've been in the healthcare system because of a family member for many, many years. And trust me, there are a lot of them of all different colors. And I also have had bias against me, maybe because I'm not attractive enough. I'm not sure.
Well, that never happened to me.
Yeah, well, not to you, but maybe to me, some implicit bias. And trust me, I have nothing but issues trying to get done what I needed done in the healthcare system without going into detail. But Governor Whitmer, is that what you call her, Whitnut?
No, Nit Whitmer.
Nit Whitmer?
Wretched Nit Whitmer.
Okay, get her puppet out for this one.
Ooh.
Okay, so apparently she spoke to the Dean and Professor of Michigan State College, University College of Nursing, to explain to all of us stupid people what implicit bias is.
I have implicit stupidity.
There, that's it. Apparently,
Oh, she fell off.
according
You know
to the
why? She's been decapitated.
to the Dean and Professor of the Michigan State University College of Nursing, so don't go there. Implicit bias is an evolutionary human self-defense mechanism because it's so frequently associated with race. It has implications of thinking that we're accusing someone of being racist, and the key is that it's unconscious. Any of this make sense to you?
Did I really say that? Because
No.
I don't understand those words.
Yeah, the dean said this.
Oh.
The dean said,
wonder.
I guess it's a man, he said, implicit bias in a medical setting in particular leads to negative unconscious thought and lesser for some and even no treatment for others, and the task force believes this causes unnecessary deaths. Isn't that stupid?
That's why I'm shutting the state down forever.
The practical impact of Executive Directive 2020-7 means that anybody who wants to get a new license or renew their training, or a new license or wants to renew their medical license, they have to undergo implicit bias training. Isn't that stupid? Stupid,
I'm very stupid.
Yes, okay, because she can go away now. I've had enough of her. And now here's a very intelligent black woman, Carol
I haven't
Swain.
had enough for you, baby.
Go away, you're disgusting, you're a creepo. Carol Swain, black woman, former Vanderbilt professor and advisory board member with Black Voices for Trump, claims that the ultimate goal of the recent protests, vandalism, and occupation is the destruction of the U.S. It's
Yes.
not about police brutality or racism.
Right?
It's a part of a global movement to destroy the United States as we know it. Its roots are in Marxism, and anyone that studies Marxism knows what it is, and it goes to communism, and that's where we're headed. She said the activists have an agenda. They're well organized. The uprisings are not spontaneous.
No.
The grievances of black people and others that are oppressed are being used to advance an agenda. She said it's time for Americans to wake up
Yes.
because the agitators will never be satisfied.
They need to be eliminated.
She said the Black Lives Matter and a lot of organizations, a lot of companies are endorsing the movement for protection because they're afraid if they don't endorse, their companies will be burnt down, or like in Seattle, they'll demand
Right.
protection
No
money.
freedom of speech,
And
no
the
freedom
police,
of thought.
that's right, the police are not going to be there, and the people are afraid, so they're going along with all this other stuff. She said it's very distressing that people are not pushing back. I see that connected with all the hysteria the Democrats are pushing with the coronavirus and making us all wear masks. It's all about destroying our way of life in America, and people need to wake up. So this is a black woman, Black Voices for Trump, educated, obviously.
She's a smart woman.
Yes. Supreme Court rules that half of Oklahoma is Native American land. I found this
Probably all of
interesting.
it is.
Well, yes, but what they're doing, they're going back, and apparently their original treaty was brought up in court. Now, what was interesting, this is not about owning the land, it's about who has what the boundaries of the reservation are. And it's very important for the Native American people, and I'll tell you why. Because much of Tulsa, which is the state's second largest city, is located on Muskegee or Cree land. And so today's decision of the day that it was made will allow the nation to honor our ancestors by maintaining our established sovereignty and territorial boundaries. So this means that certain major crimes that are committed within the boundaries of the reservation, which now includes Tulsa and half of Oklahoma, will be prosecuted in federal court rather than a state court if a Native American is involved.
Oh, only if a native.
That's what they say. Less serious crimes will be handled in tribal courts. So it's taken.
Well, you need to call them Amerindian because anyone born in the United States is a Native American.
Yeah, but they're calling it for the article's purpose a Native American. So that's what I'm
And
using.
Tulsa, spelled backwards, is a slut.
That's true. I've seen that before. So it says apparently now past decisions can be reversed because now they're considered wrongful convictions because the state lacked jurisdiction. So they're trying to do something, and we just have to keep our eye on what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it says civil court issues are also affected because of case concerns jurisdiction. So we don't know what's going to happen. But again, the judges said ruling that these lands are in fact reservations doesn't mean the tribe owns the land, just like the county doesn't own all the land within the county. But it has jurisdiction. So they're, for whatever reason, whatever they're going to move forward with, I think it's an important landmark case, and we need to see what happens beyond this.
Beyonce.
Yeah, Beyonce. Now, this next article, very interesting to me because it says that slavery is not a crime in almost half of the world, countries of the world.
That's true.
And it said that this is something that people take for granted. They think that slavery is a crime. However, this is a supposedly new study, and you can read it. It's a very lengthy article, but I bottom lined it here for you. That it says in almost half the world's country, there's no criminal law penalizing either slavery or the slave trade. And of course, we see a lot of this to me in Islamic countries where
Mostly,
they're marrying
and African
girls,
countries, yeah.
Like 8, 9 years old, maybe younger, with older men. Just terrible things are happening.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I feel like I'm your slave.
Yeah, you are my slave. I'll tell you in public, you're my slave. It said that getting states, or they call it state, but the countries, to completely outlaw slavery and other exploitative practices modern slavery, because apparently there are a lot of rules and laws and criminalization of human trafficking, but not modern slavery, which includes forced labor and, of course, human trafficking, institution and practices similar to slavery, such as servitude, and let's see, here we go. Well, anyway, I'll get to it. But it was interesting because they talked about Mauritania, for example.
I was in Mauritania.
They said the practice of buying and selling slaves has continued since the 13th century, where enslaved serving families as livestock herders, agricultural workers, domestic service for generations with little to no freedom of movement.
Well, there's like nobody living in Mauritania. It's like empty.
Well, it doesn't matter if you're a slave, you got a problem and you're upset. Modern slavery does not only, as they said, they have some that actually criminalize human trafficking in children, but not in adults. And actually, there are some countries that criminalize trafficking in women or children, but they do not criminalize trafficking in men. Men are not protected.
That's interesting.
I thought that was very interesting, but they keep the laws in place the way they are for not only sexual exploitation, which is what we think about, but they also said forced labor and institution and practices similar to slavery or organ harvesting.
Uh-huh.
So they raised them for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it said that there's no penal sanctions to address forced labor, which ensnares about 25 million people who are forced to work for little or no pay, long hours in agriculture, factories, construction, restaurants, forced criminality and cannabis farming, and they're beaten, they're degraded, they're sold, they're gifted, and sometimes they're purposely supplied with drugs and alcohol to create dependency on their trafficker, and that reduces their risk of escape. So all these things, when you think of human slavery, that's what we should be fighting. Not just Black Lives Matter, everybody's life matters.
You offended me.
Well, I want to get your attention.
You micro-abused me.
And this was overlooked, this about what Trump said in his July 4th speech. I want to bring this up because he said that our nation is stronger than ever before. For Americans, nothing is impossible. He said, including the moon landing 50 years ago, and he promised very soon we will plant the American flag on Mars.
Except it's already there.
But then nobody really talked about it. So this was kind of slipped between the lines. It's just in there. So continue to watch, like I said, whatever way.
There's something going on, people, behind the scenes.
A lot of things. And my last article, which I think is extremely important, and this has to do with China. Because apparently, according to Jewish tradition, the 10 plagues will reappear before the Messiah. Rabbi Yosef Berger, who is the rabbi of King David's tomb on Mount Zion, quoted the prophet Micah, which said, I will show him wondrous deeds as in the days when you sallied forth from the land. Now in February, before the coronavirus really took off, Rabbi Yosef Pinto, who's an internationally acclaimed Israeli mystic rabbi who lives in Morocco, made a statement about China, this is before it happened, about China being the target of divine retribution.
Aha.
And he cited the prophet Ezekiel as his source, And Ezekiel said, this was February, I will pour out my anger upon sin. Sin shall writhe in anguish. Now in modern Hebrew, sin
It's
means China. So then he goes on to talk about all these plagues, which I talked about in the beginning, the plagues. So apparently there's near Noah scale floods which are endangering the Three Gorges Dam. And a German-Chinese hydrologist said the dam could collapse at any moment, that the project was finished too quickly using substandard
As the
concrete.
Chinese always do.
An estimated 400 million people live downstream of the Three Gorges Dam, and 40,000 have already been evacuated.
Only 40,000 out of 40 million.
And also, guess one of the cities which would be hard hit by flooding?
Tell me it's Wuhan.
Wuhan, home of the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Wipe it out.
Yeah.
Flood it up.
And they're also saying because of all the rain, earthquakes are possible. And on July 2nd, the China Meteorological Administration issued a heavy rain warning, and so therefore they're saying it's also possible of earthquakes, which could be due to the pressure caused by the huge reservoir at the Three Gorges Dam. So there's a lot of things facing China. And then they also talk in the article about the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention is taking a number of actions to monitor and prepare against a new swine influenza
Of
virus
course.
in China, which could wipe out the pork production in China, and of course in China that's what they eat.
A bunch of pigs.
And not only that, we've also talked about the plague of locusts, and of course that's in Africa.
So
And
did you get 10
apparently-
plagues yet?
We're getting there. We got locusts, we got floods, we got earthquakes. Okay, now apparently the plague of locusts has returned this year 8,000 times larger than before, covering 13 countries and threatening several more.
I know that.
And guess what? It can move up into India along that area where you talked
right.
about. Okay, so now India is wanting, apparently China has ducks that they give to people to eat their locusts, right? So apparently last year they promised 100,000 ducks to Pakistan, but they didn't deliver. So now India's asking for the ducks, but China said because of this border situation, they'll give them the ducks.
No duck for you.
Yeah. So we don't know what's going to happen with infestation of locusts because of the Chinese withholding the ducks, which because of the border, these locusts then could go into China and destroy things in there as well.
They will deserve it.
So they should give them the ducks.
Yeah.
So then the swarm, it says, has also reached Nepal, and of course from there into China. And then it said that China was hit by a storm of coronavirus-shaped hailstones last month, and a bizarre plague of darkness the month before.
I hope it all fell on the communist Chinese leaders.
And then a plague in Egypt, is the sixth plague, they call it, was boils, may very well have been the bubonic plague, which they're talking about
Came from
also
Wuhan.
coming from there. So anyway, I found that article extremely interesting because of everything that, all the prophecies are coming
Yes.
true.
And just to follow up on what you said, I posted on my blog videos this past week, and I hope you watched it, showing the possibilities that JFK Jr.
Yes.
was alive, and Princess Diana was still alive, and Joan Rivers. I hope Joan Rivers. I don't care about the other two, but I love Joan Rivers.
Well, all these things, like I said, is bizarro out there.
And so, and I also posted privately an image that showed that AOC could very well be Huma Abedin's sister.
Who is, for those who don't know?
Henna Abedin, I forgot her first name. It's
As in the Hema, Hema.
Hema,
I think.
maybe. But when you put her picture next to AOC, I tend to
Yeah, but you
go.
have to tell people who Hema is.
I said Huma Abedin's sister.
Yeah, but they don't know who Hema. Why should they care about Huma Abedin?
She was Hillary's assistant.
There you go.
You know that. And
But they don't know that.
Married to the Congressman Weiner. You know, I love that name. Who also had a laptop full of horrible things on it from HRC and his wife as an insurance policy. And you already talked about Bill de Blasio, whose real name is Warren
Right.
Wilhelm
You
Jr.,
talked
a
about it
Sandinista
we all said
Nicaraguan
that twice,
communist
third
pig,
time.
who's now in mayor. How did he get to be mayor of New York City? How do people not know his real name? How could New Yorkers not know these? You got tricked, New York. Do something
Whoever
about
wanted to put
it.
him in, got him
Get
in.
him the F out. He's a fake communist.
We already said that.
A communist
Do you have anything
controlling
else
New
to
York?
tell them? You've already said that.
You are
16
abusing. You are
times.
abusing me.
Tell them something new. They don't know.
All right. Well, my Ecuador webinar will be July 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and you do need to register.
That's English,
It's
Spanish.
in English and Spanish. And did you put the registration information up yet?
Yes, it's been up for weeks.
Well, so start registering, people.
People are registering, and that's where you want to be sure the seats are limited. If you haven't registered, you need to get your space because they said these webinars have been selling out.
And I also posted on my blog, and you probably have elsewhere, the link to the free webinar on the symposium that I'm doing in October and November.
It's getting posted.
I have it on my
It's
blog.
in process.
And I will be attending the North American Space Summit, which will be August 31st to September 2nd in Traverse City, the only city that's completely opened in Michigan. Oh, that's where Gretchen lives.
About that.
How strange.
And how strange you'll be there.
Yeah.
And remember, this is a private event. This is not public.
It's not for anybody, only I'm allowed
Yeah, but
to
when you
go.
tell them, then they think it's public. So you got to
You
be
can stand
specific.
outside and hope that you get to see me, but you cannot come in. And I would also ask you to please register for the Global Night Symposium, which will be October 30th and 31st, with the investiture November 1st in Sterling Heights, Michigan.
Yes, but to do that, you have to be a member of
You
SMOC
mu-
or
I was
Expansions.
going to say you must
Okay.
either join SMOC or Expansions or both in order to attend. And I'm doing that in conjunction with Senator Michael McDonald and SMOC. And so that leaves me with my ride to Long Island. Yes, I'm going to say it one more time. I do need a ride to Long Island. I need to arrive there August 20th, and I leave August 24th. Please contact me if you're interested. I don't want to hear about a third party. I don't want you to talk for anybody else. Either you contact me directly or I cannot communicate.
Customer support at expansions.com. And remember all the series of books we put together for you: Health and Healing, Hyperspace, Healing Archetypes and Symbols, Daily Affirmations. Please show them our 2 latest medical books. It's on your side of the table. Okay.
No, it's on your side and I have to reach over it and it hurts my back.
Okay, Heights of Health, Alternative Medical Apocrypha. These are all things that you can do to help yourself. If you're not familiar with our work, we have these 2. Hyperspace Helper, Decoding Your Life. 2 great books to put in your library. 13 Cubes Squared, Say No to Mind Control. This is a great series of books. And of course, this one is just too much even to mention. This is absolutely fascinating.
Mhm.
King Bee, Template of God Mind, Revelations, Heights of Spirituality. You know, everything that you can do for body, mind, and soul, we've got for you. Remember, we've also talked about this because of limited supply. It's available only now to members. So you got to be a member of
Yeah, 'cause,
Expansions. We do have the research on there. We're not telling you anything cures anything.
No.
Okay, this is for you to make up your own mind. But we have a lot of interesting
We live in a
things.
communist country where you can't tell the truth.
Yes, and so anyway, so I just want to remind you that you are responsible for you. Be responsible for yourself. Get a membership, expansions.com. That's where we communicate with everybody on a daily basis. So this is your opportunity, if you like what we have to say, to take care of yourself, body, mind, and spirit, and join with a worldwide global community that we reach and we talk to every single day.
And we do.
And we do.
And I do. I'm on
We
the
do.
phone all freaking day. So,
But the blog is not on the phone, dear. That's what I'm talking
no,
about.
but sometimes
The
you
website
can
is.
be on the phone and read it. It's okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you for your attention. Again, if you're interested in driving with me for 14 hours each way in your air-conditioned luxury car, then please contact customer support at expansions.com.
Bye.
Bye for now.